We need an energy policy that decreases our dependency on foreign oil and stops this drain on our economy. We need to increase our domestic oil production and our refinery capacity. And we need the Department of Energy and the EPA facilitating that process instead of constantly standing in the way. We need an economic policy. Yes, we need to spend less, but we need to make more. We need to do this with lower taxes. We got to address both sides of our balance sheet. We're in business to sell products and services. We need to cut our spending with a federal balanced budget amendment and start paying off this $14 trillion debt. We got to make sure that we save Medicare and Social Security, protect and promote small business, restore our free markets, and promote entrepreneurship and new business startup. And we got to have trade agreements and treaties that protect our jobs and our patents and our technology. We need a foreign policy that returns American prestige and honor and pride around the world. And our U.S. embassies and ambassador teams need to be formidable. And we need to have no treaties or trade agreements with nations that are breaching our patents and robbing us of our economic strength, harboring terrorists, or not supporting us to the world at all times. And we need to have no foreign aid to any country who doesn't stand with us at any issue or time. We need a domestic policy here at home that protects America's homeland. We need to restore the Constitution as the law of the land. It is the law of the land. And we need to limit union bargaining right in government jobs. And when we do infrastructure development, it needs to be American workers, American materials, and American equipment. We need to protect our proprietary technology, and we need to force employers to make sure that their workers are here legally and in the tax system. And we need effective homeland security that secures our borders, and we need to make sure there's no Sharia law, courts, or banks in this country. And if it's me, I think we need to try anyone that's a terrorist in military tribunals and not the comforts of civilian court. And finally, the sixth pillar is we need a military policy. We must maintain the very strongest and best military in the world and fulfill all commitments to our veterans. We need to maintain force projection forward to deter enemies as often as possible. But when the day comes that someone continues to be a threat to our country and they simply will not play well in the sandbox and we've exhausted every other option, we have to go to the toolbox and get the big hammer. But you know what? We got to do it right and not like this poorly managed mess that's going on in Libya. You got to accurately assess the threat. Who are they? What are they? What do they got? How do they use it? What's their strengths? What's their weaknesses? We take a look at establishing a force package that brings to bear overwhelming force and integrates all assets and resources of national power into a fully joint operation that completely dominates the battle space at every level, strategically, operationally, and tactically, in every environment, land, sea, and air. You have rules of engagement that levels the playing fields for our troops and takes away these unfair enemy advantages. And you keep American fighting forces under the command of American leaders. You have a clear in-state vision, so you know what the victory will look like. You shape the battlefield, you command the tempo, and you dictate the outcome, and you kick their butt. And when the military objectives are achieved and the victory is secure, you have a well-orchestrated and designed exit strategy and you bring the troops out. But you also protect them and their families while they're gone. And I don't want to see any more foreclosures of homes of our troops when they're protecting our country. Okay. Let's bring this home. Where do we go from here? Well, we must continue this fight to take our country back and end these liberal giveaways. Now, as a commissioned officer of the U.S. military, I took an oath, as did many of us, to protect and defend the Constitution of the United States against all enemies, foreign and domestic. We need our judges, our Congress, and our President to respect and defend the Constitution, and we must replace the ones that's not doing what's right for America and future generations. We need to take control of the U.S. Senate in 2012 with real conservatives that have serious credentials to face these global threats. Now, I get asked sometimes, where do I stand on the Second and the 10th Amendment? And for my home state, Florida, I'd like a sign at every airport, every harbor, and every road junction. Warning, you're entering a 10th Amendment-owned and operated state, and justice will be served with the Second Amendment. We've got to trash this Obama economics that's doubled our debt and give us 9% unemployment and throw the illegal Obama health care in the trash for good. We need to get the legal handcuffs off and let the American spirit and ingenuity go back to work and restore the family as the pillar of American society. And we got to keep the ownership of America in the hands of American citizens and out of the hands of our federal government, out of the hands of China, and out of the hands of the UN. We got to quit using government to collect union dues from paychecks, and we got to stop giving our money away and use it to save Medicare and Social Security. And if it's me, I'd fire Janet Napolitano and get someone running Homeland Security that understands that that job is to protect American citizens and not those that are here illegally. And I think we need a full audit of the Federal Reserve because I want to know where my money's going, and they need to have transparency to the GAO. We've got to stop this dumbing down of America and get back to the values and principles that made this country great. And we need to get the pride of American history, the teaching of the Constitution, the American flag, and the Pledge of Allegiance back in our schools. And we've got to stop this political correctness and coddling of Islamic terrorists. These radicals want to kill us, and it can't be tolerated. We've got to stop this infiltration into our textbooks and our schools. We can't allow Islamic banks or courts in our country. And we must fully support Israel as the only democracy and ally we have in the Middle East. And if it's me, I would never issue a building permit for a mosque on sacred American soil stained with the blood of innocent citizens by a terrorist attack. And finally on this, we must secure our borders and no more lip service. Folks, I worked at U.S. Special Operations Command in the War on Terror, and we also did the money laundering, drug trafficking, and it all works together. We got everything coming through this border. It's not just people wanting to pick strawberries where I live. We got to stop rewarding people for being here illegally. We need to realize and let the world know that being in this country is a privilege and not a right. Americans have paid the ultimate price, and just because you show up doesn't mean we owe you anything. If you want to be here, you got to be here legally. If you want to work here, you got to be in the tax system. If you want to live here, you need to be a contributor and not a taker. And if you want to be a citizen, we have a process that you need to follow. And for me, please learn to speak English. Well, my friends, we're going to close, but we need to recognize that this election next year, the liberals are formidable. They will go to any extreme. Let's not kid ourselves. We're going to have to get our game face on and put our most qualified players on the field at every level. Next year's elections will have huge and long-lasting consequences. And I'm going to ask you, how many of you all have children or grandchildren? Next year's election is about our children, our grandchildren, and our country. It's not about whose political career is it, whose turn is it. We got to put formidable people against these threats. We're under attack, and we need all hands on deck. You know what? I'm going to close with a quote from Reagan, and we all remember him. To anyone that doesn't believe freedom has to be protected. Freedom is never more than one generation away from extinction. We didn't pass it to our children in the bloodstream. It must be fought for, protected, and handed on for them to do the same. My friends, this is still the land of the free and the home of the brave, in one nation under God. We must keep America strong, prosperous, and stop those that want to give it away or take it away. And failure is simply not an option. Americans have always found a way to fight and win, and we will once again. Now, too often our politicians put themselves first, but soldiers put America first. In 2012, Floridians are going to send another hard-charging colonel to the U.S. Senate to give Alan West some reinforcements. My friends, I want to thank you for letting me be here today. You're doing great work. We're going to win this fight, and never let your head get down. I want to thank you, and may God bless you, and may God bless America.